that existed much earlier in the land of Israel, but the Ari synagogue is believed to possibly be the oldest synagogue in continuous use in the land of Israel, named for the Ari, a great leader, leader in Kabbalah. And we can look at the inside with blue, which is a color traditional to mystical Jewish life. And I want to point out the ark with really a very unique ark, as you can see, the columns here. And we'll just go around. If anyone wants to share, I imagine, unlike Rhodes, I imagine someone has probably been, if not many, have been to the synagogues in Tzfat. If anyone wants to share anything, if you've had experience at the Ari synagogue.
I did visit there. It's a very special place.
Yeah, my sense, whenever I go, whenever I've been to Tzfat, you kind of feel it walking through the city streets.
Yep.
Kind of the Jewish mystical feel and really the power of going through. And the Ari synagogue, the oldest of the synagogues standing in Tzfat today, of many old synagogues and synagogues that have been built, many over 100 years, but this the oldest synagogue, the Ari synagogue today. Was established by Sephardic immigrants from Greece who came. And Rabbi Isaac Luria, a leader in the Kabbalah movement, prayed in this synagogue when he arrived in 1570. And it became known by his name because he would pray there, the Ari synagogue, but was actually a synagogue that he prayed in while he was there. And the ark, you could see, we'll show it again. But it's built in his honor, his memory. He was accustomed to leave the synagogue to walk to a nearby field. In fact, it's said that the Kabbalat Shabbat service was, according to tradition, the rabbis and the leaders in the Jewish community would go out into the fields to welcome. They would actually go out into the fields to welcome in Shabbat, and that's really the origin of the Kabbalat Shabbat service. And they would go into the forests. And so, as you can see, I'll see if I can get I think I have a better picture of just the ark. Right here, if you can see it. Oh, let me see if I can get it, if there's a better one here. The ark is designed, the columns are designed to look like the woods, and you see the greenery to remind everyone when they come of the tradition of going out into the forests, into nature to welcome in Shabbat, and where the origins of what today is established across the Jewish world, the Kabbalat Shabbat service, welcoming in Shabbat on Friday evening.
I davened at that synagogue many years ago for a weekday morning service, and it was about a 2.5 hour service.
Yeah. Right now,
so it's the place is breathtaking, and davening in the style of their davening is breathtaking. It was quite an experience.
Good. No, I'm glad to hear. And I think similar to many synagogues in Tzfat, the davening is longer than we might be used to. But there's a lot of mystical tradition and a lot of tradition. A lot of stuff
going on that you have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alec, did the ark look like that? Was it like that? Really?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was the whole thing was so breathtaking, and the people who you were davening with was absolutely unbelievable.
Good.
I mean, it was just as spiritual an experience as you could have, I think.
Well, when I was there were just people praying there. There wasn't a set service, but there were individuals who had come there to pray.
Who were either learning or praying or doing,
Yeah, they were studying.
Yeah.
Right. It's because of its because it's a center of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, right? This synagogue and many others in Tzfat not only have the regular prayer times where they have regular services, but also many individuals will come in at all times to give their own individual prayers.
Do women have a place in that prayer house? Are they part of it?
No,
They
sit
so
out.
Alec, where in this particular synagogue was there a space?
I'm trying to, I get this place mixed up with a place that was a Rocky shul.
I don't recall a place for women.
I think that women had if they came to services, there was not a space for them. They sat outside.
So, right, one of the challenges, unfortunately, with this and many of the synagogues in Tzfat, some might have small women's sections in the back, but many might not. If there are women coming, they might be just outside. This synagogue, though, and as far as I know, all of the others, during off times, women will come and tour just like anyone else. But unfortunately, the synagogues are not so well set up, and that's one thing that is unfortunate, and you know, I don't know whether we'll see that change, but something that
it's a barrier.
I would love to see.
I guess I also meant it in not so much in the literal sense, but also in the figurative sense, which is, does the Kabbalistic tradition have room for women in it?
So, I mean, female, that I'm not necessarily the most qualified to answer. I know Kabbalistic tradition and mystical tradition, women are, play a major role in the mystical tradition. In fact, the Jewish people, in a sense, and I don't want to get into all the details, and I'm not as well versed in it myself, but in many ways, God is seen as kind of the husband on the throne, and Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, is like God's presence on earth, is kind of like God's wife. In many senses, the tikkun that we mentioned is kind of a mystical ritual of the union of God and the Jewish people, with God symbolized as king, and the Jewish people seen as kind of God's bride, and they're coming together in union. But in terms of women's role, I don't know specifically. In terms of the prayer service itself, to the best of my knowledge, it looks similar to what an Orthodox synagogue in Cleveland would look like in terms of role.
I'm just curious, on the right side of the ark, is that mosaic, or is that like carpet? I can't tell really where the blue is, where it's
the
kind
picture?
of almost on the ark. It's to the right side of the ark.
On the ark.
On the ark, is it mosaic? Can you tell what that stuff is?
I think it's painted woodwork, I believe.
It's painted.
Yeah,
Painted?
painted.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's all painted, yeah.
Wood. It looks like wood.
I believe it's all painted wood.
it's wood. The whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all made of wood.
Okay.
I also have a question. On the left side, on the second floor, there is a curtained area. That's a place for women.
That might be mechitza there.
Oh, up here might be, yeah. It could be a place for women up here, yeah.
But I think there's a distinction between when women can participate. For some reason, I recall that, and in a regular, for instance, a morning service, you would not have women at the service, but for certain occasions, women would be allowed into this service. That's my recollection.
Okay, that I don't know. I know in most places, in many of these communities, there just often are not that many, if any, women that come on a regular weekday morning, but I don't know what this particular synagogue does. Yeah. I wanted to jump to today. What does the Jewish community look like? This is actually the Jewish synagogue in Athens today. Interestingly, while Athens is the capital and the largest city, it's not the home of the most ancient Jewish communities, which were on the Greek islands and Salonika. We saw across the street from Beth Shalom. It sounds like it could be in Cleveland here, Beth Shalom. in Athens, is kind of a merger. Across the street was the older Etz Chaim synagogue, which was a Romaniot synagogue. Today, that's really just a site, and everyone is kind of gathered together, the Romaniot community, the Sephardic community, and modern Jews, Jews from elsewhere that have come in more modern day. I like looking at this building because it's in Greek, you don't even know necessarily that it's a synagogue. It looks like a Greek building, which it is, but we'll look just inside where these are some pictures of the synagogue today in Athens. Here's the inside of the synagogue. And it looks in many ways, as a modern construction. I will just wanted to share what the Ark looked like, which is built in the Romaniot style, using using a Greek design for the Ark. So this is the Ark and the davening Amud stand at the synagogue Beth Shalom in Athens. Today, the Romaniot community does exist in the United States and Western Hemisphere. This is Kehila Kadosha Yanina, which is in Lower Manhattan, I think on Broome Street, if you're familiar with that area.
Yep.
In Lower Manhattan. This is a picture of the interior. This synagogue, the women are actually above. If you look at this hole in the ceiling, there's actually a second floor, which is actually the women's section. But you can see kind of the Ark in the front, and more towards the back here, just like we saw in Yanina, is where the person who's leading the service actually stands in the back and where the Torah is read from. And their people are actually facing one another. There's kind of this open space in the middle, and you have benches on either side, which was the style of the Romaniot community. Still is open to visit if you're in New York City following the pandemic, I suppose. I don't know if it's open right now, but the Kehila Kadosha Yanina is named for the Yanina Jewish community. And today they keep an email list actually of every Romaniot Jew in the United States. Many live in the New York area, but they try to maintain connection with every Romaniot Jew and have a list of actually over 3,500 emails, 3,500 names that they send to on a regular basis to try to keep the Romaniot Jewish community in the United States connected to one another. This is kind of a picture, a close-up of the bima here in New York City in the Romaniot community. One last synagogue here I wanted to just share is that the Greek style, we've looked at different styles. The Greek style has permeated synagogues all over the world. This is perhaps one of the most well-known in Charleston, one of the oldest synagogues buildings in the United States was built in the Greek style. This is a classical Reform synagogue, Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim in Charleston, a beautiful synagogue. I remember when I was in Charleston, just kind of happening upon it. A friend of mine actually who was living there took me to the area, and we wanted to see this synagogue, among other things in ancient Charleston, but kind of looks kind of in the style of the Parthenon or of even many of the buildings in Washington, D.C., which were also built in the Greek style. Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim, here's the interior that we'll see with the large rotunda. Here's the ceiling. And is one of a number of synagogues in the United States that was built in the Greek style. Here's the Ark with the columns on either side. And then, right, there's a large organ in the back. This is really a classical Reform synagogue, but a great example of Greek architecture. Still, it's built in the mid 1800s, but still seen in synagogues around the world today is the Greek influence in architectural style. Sorry. Oh, I didn't. It sounded like someone was saying something, but so this is an example though of the Greek style. Has anyone been to the synagogue in Charleston? Do you have anything? Do you recall anything? Yeah, Berkowitz's or? Yeah. I don't know if you have any recollections of this particular. You're muted. Sorry, Ed.
It was large.
I was taking a class on classic architecture in
Okay.
Charleston. So we were running around taking pictures of all these places, and that was one of the places in this list of classic architecture.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
Yes.
open at the time, but I do remember it fit right into all the other mansions and so forth in Charleston.
Okay, good. Right, it fits in with the mansions. That's, yeah, very true. So that's one example of Greek style. I just will share quickly, as I know we're just have a little time left. But one of the synagogues, as I mentioned, there's actually 2 moshavs in Israel, which are exclusively kind of immigrants from the Greek Jewish communities. One of the synagogues that we looked at a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago at this point, which is designed in a seashell, the Heichal Yehuda, it's actually designed to look like a seashell, but was actually built by immigrants from Greece, and is actually a Greek synagogue in Tel Aviv, a beautiful synagogue built by the Greek Jewish community. This is the front side of the synagogue where you walk in, and a picture of the interior of the synagogue. And so while we talk about Greece and the Greek Jewish community, or we talk about the fight with the Greeks and the Greek Empire on Hanukkah, Jews have been intermingling and have been integrating with Greek society since even before the Maccabees. And I think, I want to recognize Hanukkah is, in my eyes, right, a battle for the freedom of religion. But the Greek era was also a time where traditions were adopted from both Jewish traditions, both the Greek traditions into Jewish traditions, and possibly vice versa. In fact, likely vice versa as well, as the communities have lived together side by side in many places for thousands of years. I just want to finish. Thank you, Alec, for sending. I wanted to finish with a community in Siberia that Alec Berezin sent me, the Soldiers Synagogue in Tomsk, which is in Siberia. Thank you for sending.
Yeah.
Really beautiful, and one of very few all wooden synagogues left in the world. There were many wooden synagogues in Poland and Ukraine in between the 1500s through the 1800s. Many don't exist. Most don't exist, as wooden structures just didn't survive the Holocaust in many cases. But this synagogue was actually built in the early 1900s, actually by children soldiers were forced into conscription in the Russian army, and they built this building, which was originally a synagogue and wasn't for many, many years until just a few years ago was gifted back to the Jewish community. And they built this year, I believe it was this year, right, that they just built an ice menorah Chanukiah.
Yeah.
This is the interior. It's actually a beautiful synagogue, but they built a 10-foot high ice Chanukiah sculpture made out of ice. So this is the sculpture today in Siberia. I guess it's cold enough there that they don't need to worry about it melting. but a beautiful Chanukiah out of ice for our year. Thank you for sharing. So we'll stop. We'll stop there. Judy, yeah, you have if there's any comments or thoughts or questions. Yeah, Judy, you're muted.
Yes. Back to the Beth Shalom synagogue in Athens.
Yeah.
Correct. Did they observe? They light candles uniquely. I think it's neither Hillel nor Shammai. They light like the second night. They start with the second candle and then light all of them. And the third night, third candle, and light all the candles every night. So every night, all the lights are lit. All the candles are lit.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware. That's very interesting.
If that's the place, I think that's the one. Yeah.
Very nice.
So Rabbi, is your baby home? Do you have your baby at home?
Oh, no. So I said that at the beginning. The baby was born like 4.5 weeks early. And so it was in the NICU, just gaining strength. But hopefully, God willing, we'll be home once he's ready soon enough. And as I said, we'll send out, or on anyone can reach out. But we'll have bris information, which will be on Zoom. So once he's healthy enough to come
Is
home.
he in Cleveland or nearby?
He's actually in Warren, just outside Youngstown.
Oh, okay. Close enough.
I had a preemie 40 years ago, and it's it's a very unique experience, and I wish you well, and I hope the baby has a very, very good outcome.
Yeah, thank you. No, it seems everything. No, there's no major concerns. They just start, which is good. But just want to make sure he can latch on to eat the bottle properly, which is the main issue.
Another Hanukkah miracle.
But he's doing well. Thank you.
Very good.
It's great.